guys. It's great to see you here. My name is Rebeka Karrant. I am a staff member in the Electrical and Computer Engineering Department. I am the electronic tech in that department, and I'm very grateful to be here, and I'm glad you have decided to come and join me. Out of all the choices you had, you came here, and I really appreciate that choice. All the description that you read for this workshop came out of this book right here. The title is A Testament of Hope, The Essential Writings and Speeches of Martin Luther King. And this is one incredible book. And that's why I gave you a few quotes. They all came from the chapter that I'm going to be doing this talk from. There's, God, I don't know, almost 700 pages in here, and not only is it his writings and his speeches, but it's also some of the interviews that he did. And even though back in the day, everything he spoke about was about segregation and racism and his efforts to change the world, to change this country and eliminate segregation, to rid racism so that we all could be his dream of walking hand in hand, no matter what our color, no matter what our ethnic background, but that we would all live and play together as brothers and sisters in this world in peace and without doing harm and being afraid of each other. And that's what this book is about. But as I read this book, and I bought this book many years ago, but as I read this book, it's amazing that even though he's talking about racism, everything in here, everything that he wrote is relevant to today and to the struggles that we experience today. Now, by no means have we arrived as far as racism is concerned. We're a lot further along than we were in the 60s, most definitely, but there's still some racism in this country. We still deal with it on a daily basis. But this is incredible. When you start to read this, if you choose to read this, you will get great inspiration from this book, because everything is applicable to our struggles of today. Because today, come on in, today you cannot talk about a system, here you go, here you go. You cannot talk about a system that isn't broken, struggling, or that hasn't already failed. And it's not just in the United States. This is a global problem. It's global. You know, everybody has healthcare problems. Everybody has an economy that is struggling. Everybody has problems in education. We're all dealing with problems with the environment. Every system has a problem. And we've got to step up to the plate and do something about it. More specifically, it's your generation. You are the guys that are going to be the ones that fix all these problems. My generation, it's up to us to start being an example, living an example, and being an example for you guys, and to start thinking outside the box and inspiring you guys to do the same thing. But when you graduate from this university, it's you guys that are going to be coming up with the ideas. It's you that has the power to change our world and change it for the better. And that's what this book is all about. That's what this man was all about. And he came from his passion, from his vision, from his heart. And that's what you can be about if you're not already about it right now. So, back then, we were enslaved to racism and segregation. I grew up in the South, and I was alive when he was walking the face of the earth. I was little, but I was here. And I saw it on TV, and I heard things, and I even experienced a few things. But I wasn't really, you know, old enough to truly understand everything until years and years later. And I certainly did not appreciate this man back then the way I do now. And I see him in a completely different light. And I'll explain more about that in a little bit. But, you know, we today, back then we were enslaved to segregation and racism. Today, we're enslaved to broken systems. A government that is struggling. And not just our government, but every government. We're all struggling globally. All right? And we're enslaved to this, and it's time for that to stop. And we stop it by taking the power ourselves. Not waiting for Obama to fix something, not waiting for Congress to finally quit arguing and get together on issues, you know, but rather we start making decisions ourselves, acting ourselves, influencing Congress, influencing Obama, and even coming up with the solutions. You guys are going to be graduating in different studies, you know, some law, some health, becoming nurses or doctors, some in the engineering. Every area needs help. And when you learn how to think outside the box, you can become the solution. We're going to talk a lot more about that in just a little bit. But the first thing we have to do to fix our global problems, because we want to choose community over chaos. And that's what the title of this is. It's an actual title out of the book. You know, where do we go from here? Chaos or community? We want to start making our choices to be community and no longer chaos. We want to put a stop to that and change the way we respond and the way we react to what's going on around us, in our family, on this campus, in this state, in this country. To do that, we've got to be flexible, and we have to reinvent our own lives in ways that are self-sustainable. Sustainable for us as individuals, sustainable for us as students of this campus, and sustainable as a country and on the planet. Here you go.
Thank you.
Right now, as it stands right now, in the United States, we are one of the strongest, if not the strongest, economy in existence on this planet. And everybody else has invested in us, okay? Every time something happens, like to the euro or to the yen or something of that nature, it affects the dollar. The dollar may go down a little bit, it may go up a little bit. Everything that happens globally affects us. But everything that happens to us affects them tremendously. Greece failed. We're all still here. But if the United States goes down, if our economy tanks, the world tanks. Even China, because they have billions invested in us. So we are the glue, basically, that's holding everything together economically right now. And that's an important thing to know, especially if you're in the business school, because we've got to fix it. We can no longer accept cutbacks and tax increases and tax decreases and bailouts and band-aids and things of that nature. These aren't solutions. They've been doing this since way back in the Ford administration and the Carter administration, the two first administrations I started paying attention to, you know? And they've been talking the same solutions since way back then. And consistently, nothing has ever gotten better. It just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse, you know? And the national debt keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. We can't use the same thinking to fix our problems. Einstein said you cannot solve a problem with the same thinking that created the problem. We got to get it out of the paradigm, we got to get it out of the box and start thinking of new ways to solve these problems. And that's where you guys come in. Because you guys, you have the vision, you have the understanding from your education, you have the passion within you, you have the energy within you because you're young. Your whole life is ahead of you. And you really and truly are the answer to all the problems in our society. Just like Martin Luther was in his day. He didn't get to live to fulfill it, but he certainly got it off the ground in a very big way. Who knows where we'd be today if that man was still alive, you know? Rabbi Herschel said, in every moment, something sacred is at stake. And what he meant by that was, we can choose to be awake, and we can choose to be aware. We can choose to be imaginative and creative, and we choose every moment of our lives, whether we're going to be responsible and hold our power, or whether we're just going to bury our head in the sand. Every moment, every choice we make is sacred, because every choice that you make builds your life. You have control over where your life goes and what happens, no matter what's happening around us in circumstances, no matter the economy, no matter the health care, any of that. You have control just by the simple choices that you make on a day-to-day basis on how your life is going to turn out and how you're going to live. You know, just simple choices. They make a huge difference on down the pike, and we'll even talk more about that in just a little bit. But everything, as far as what I'm saying and what we're talking about today, as far as the struggles that we're facing, even on an individual basis, in our own lives and with our families and our relationships and everything that we want out of our lives, it all comes down to the individual choices that we make and the responsibility that we decide to take for our own lives. One of the biggest revelations for me was, because, you know, we all grow up and we hit our teens and then get into our 20s, and we have a tendency to want to blame our parents for everything that we don't like about our lives. Well, you didn't give me this, you didn't do that, or you did this and you did that, you know, and therefore this, you know. We like to complain and we like to blame our parents, but let me tell you something. The day that I started taking responsibility for my own life, and instead of blaming them, I took responsibility for the things that I didn't like and started to work to change them, that was the day I stepped into freedom, literally. Literally stepped into freedom. The day you stop blaming mom and dad, the day you stop blaming the circumstances, the economy, whatever it is, and you start taking on the responsibility of your life for yourself, is the day that you are set free. That's the day that you take your power back. That's the day you stand strong and firm and tall, and you start making the things happen in your life so that your life starts to be exactly what you want it to be. In any aspect of your life, it doesn't matter. Every aspect of your life. Einstein said, humanity is going to require a substantially new way of thinking if it is to survive. And that's what we've got to do, to survive, you as an individual to survive, us as a university, us as a nation to survive. We've got to start thinking with our imagination, new thoughts, outside of all the existing paradigms. Get away from them all. Get creative. I want to tell you a story. You might think this is a little bit of an insane story, but just stick with me on this one. You are going to be glad you heard it, I promise. Martin Luther King was assassinated in 1968. In 1969, the population in the United States was just over 200 million. Just over 200 million. Now I want you to, for just a moment, imagine that entire 200 million people all gathered into one spot, okay? And you are numbered among that 200 million. And you're all going to run a race, okay? It's a marathon, not just any race, but a marathon. 26 miles you're going to run. And you all want to win. Everybody wants to win in the worst way. And so you're all going to fight. You're going to do whatever you have to do to make sure that you get to the end and you break that winner's tape. Okay? Why? Why do you want to win so bad? Because in this particular race, the stakes are extremely high. Because the person that wins this race gets to live. Everybody else dies. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. So you want to win this race and you want to win it bad. So the starting gun goes off, and you and everybody else, all 200 million of you, take off as fast as you can go. You're not conserving anything. And this is at the very beginning, and you're thinking in your head, this is insane. I can't do this for 26 miles, but I've got to, because everybody else is. And so everybody's running. Everybody's giving it all they got to get to that 26th mile and win this race. And you get to, you're down the pike, and you're realizing everything's starting to hurt, and you're starting to struggle, but you keep going. You do not let up. You just keep going. You keep going. You keep going. And you finally reach that point where you're 100 yards from the finish line, and you see the winner's tape. And you're getting excited. You want to win, man. You can do this. You're excited. You want to speed up your legs and you want to go even faster, but your body's not responding. You can't go any faster. So you just keep going at the rate you're going. And you look around you to see who's behind me, who's with me. And there's only about 100 of you there. And they're all just slightly behind you. And you're still, you've been out front the whole time. You're still there. And you think, I gotta do this, I gotta do this, and you just keep going, you keep going. And what nobody of the 100 of you realize is that all the rest of the 200 million that were back there just like you, trying just as hard as they could, going as hard as they could. They fought, they battled, but their bodies just could not take it, and they actually died right along the way. And everybody's dead, but the 100 of you that are there that see that finish line. All right? And you run and you run and you run, and you're the one that breaks the tape. You won! And you're excited and you're happy. You won. That means you get to live. And you think to me, that's an insane story, Rebeka. Why are you telling me this story? This is crazy. And what does this have to do with Martin Luther King? Well, let me tell you something about this story. What you don't realize about this story is this story is real. It's real. And guess what? It already happened. It happened. It actually happened. You see, 200 million sperm went racing against astronomical odds and battling an upstream battle, racing toward one egg. And one little lonely sperm, 100 got right there within the vicinity of the egg. All the rest of them died just trying to get there. They didn't have the oomph. They didn't have it. They died. But there's 100 of you, and you've all got that egg right in sight, you know. But one of you, just one of you, penetrates and gets in there into that egg. And guess what? 9 months later, you were born. You know what that means? Every single one of us were born champions. Every single one of us are the best of the best. Every single one of us came into this world as winners. Winners. We won. We're winners, every single one of us. And then we started going through life and forgot that we were the champion. We are still the champion. In spite of the fact that you may have forgotten, you're still the champion. Nothing can ever change that. You're here. You won the race out of 200 million. And we're all like that. We all won the race out of 200 million. So what does that have to do with Martin Luther King? Well, this woman, her name is Jill Bolte Taylor. She's a Harvard grad. She wrote a book called My Stroke of Genius. And in her book, she talks about research that has been done on the genetic level and what they've discovered on a genetic level. And what we discovered is that we, humanity, all of humanity, on a genetic level, we are 99.99% identical. There's no difference between me and you and you and you. No difference. We're all 99.99% identical at the genetic level. We only differ by 1/100th of 1%. And it's that 1/100th of a percent that gives us our skin color, gives us the shape of our eyes, the color of our eyes, the color of our hair, the way we look, the size of our body, just that 1/100th of a percent. So that means every person that you ever meet on this planet is basically identical to you. And yet, we're afraid of each other. We don't trust one another. And yet, we all want the same things. We want to be respected, validated, loved, accepted. We want to be happy. We all want the same things out of life. We only differ in that 1/100th of a percent that give us our hair and stuff like that so we don't get bored visually looking at one another. That's all. You know? Martin Luther King, even though he didn't have the science to back it up, knew that we were all the same. And that's why he was fighting so much for human rights. Not just black and white, but everybody. He included everybody. He wanted us all to live in peace and live from the heart and live from love. He recognized that we all had the same desires and wants and needs out of life. Now here's an interesting statistic that he has in his book, this book on page 590. And I haven't done any research to see if it's really true, but I believe it because it's in the book and everything else that's in that book has been true. I mean, so I have no reason to doubt this either. But he says the American Negro is a part of a world which is 2/3 colored. And when I read that, I was shocked because if the world is 2/3 colored, then that means it's only 1/3 white. Okay? Now, there's a lot of people in Africa. There's a lot of people, people of color all over the world. And so there's no reason to doubt that that is any less true today than it was back then when he wrote these words. But what that said to me was that even though in this particular country I may be a part of the majority as white, globally, I'm a part of the minority. And here's the most interesting thing about that, and he writes about that in the book. He says, even though white is the minority, white globally still, and still to this day, has the better life. We live the better lives. That said something to me, because remember, we're 99.99% identical. And if I can look at another human being and remember that, and remember that my purpose here on earth is not to harm, but to love, to encourage, to uplift, to empower. That's the desire. That's what I want out of life, and that's what I want to do. If we all take on that attitude, and that's the same attitude that he had, we can change this world in a huge, huge, huge way. When we start looking in people's eyes every time we see them, you don't see the differences, but see the divinity within, the life, the human champion within each one of us. And we start to see that and look for that. He says the common thread to all of our pain and suffering is feelings of unworthiness. We feel unworthy, and yet we won the race. We don't feel worthy to have won the race. That's how most of us feel most of the time, because we forgot. And he's saying the source of all of our pain and suffering is these feelings of unworthiness. There's a difference between thinking that you deserve to be happy and knowing that you are worthy to be happy. And that's what he was struggling against, because the African American people at that time didn't feel worthy. Nor did they feel worthy to even have happiness. So they had a lot of struggle and self-esteem that they were struggling to overcome, but we have those same struggles. And any person that was in the South at the time that was a racist and fighting to keep segregation, see, there were two victims. There was the victim that was being segregated, and there was the victim that was the racist that wanted to fight for segregation, because you see, racism is not something that we're born with. It's something that we learn as we grow up. And so what was I learning when I was growing up in the South? That's what I was learning. I didn't have a word for it, a name to it. I didn't even realize that that's what I was learning. All I knew is that black people were here. They were fighting to get into my school and close their school, and that they wanted to be respected instead of tolerated. See, tolerance, we say, oh, well, I'm a tolerant person. Tolerance is not what we need. See, tolerance says, I'll tolerate you. You stay over there and I'll stay over here and we're fine. And you can have all the rights you want. You can have all the money you want. You can have whatever you want, but just do it over there. That's tolerance, That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about, I accept you. Let's be friends. I validate you. I think what you have to say is important, and I want to hear, and I want to listen. That's what we're talking about, and that's what he was talking about. And when you do that, when you look a person in the eyes and you say, what you say is important to me, I'm going to listen, I'm going to understand, I'm going to hear, guess what you just did? You validated that person. You gave them the one thing they want most out of life. If we do that for our kids, if we do that for our parents, if we do that for our friends, there'll be no stopping you. Because when you take that attitude and you give that to another human being, guess what? That human being wants to help me achieve my goals. Now believes in my goals. Let's do it together. And together we can do anything. It's not about just doing this alone. It's about doing it together. Happiness is our birthright. Validation is our birthright. Because we won that race. We won. And nothing will ever change that. Martin Luther King, he said, all we want is to be accepted and respected. All we want is to have psychological freedom. All we want is to grow in self-esteem. We all have a calling in life. We all have gifts. We all have abilities that just come to us naturally. We came into this world with those gifts, with those abilities. And they feed our passion. They feed our heart. They make us want to go in this and that direction. You know you found your passion when you are excited to get up in the morning and you can't wait to get started because of what you're doing, because it excites you so much. It has to do with your major. It has to do with what you're going to go do with your friends, whatever it is. Pay attention to those moments, because that's where your gifts lie. That's where your abilities lie. And that's where your life will soar in the greatest way, when you use those gifts and abilities and you start to understand what they are, and you start to look and pay attention and start to live from your heart. Martin Luther King talked a lot about love, because he believed, and I believe just like him, that love is the answer. You know, even John Lennon, in his song said that love is all we need. Love is the answer. When you love somebody, you're not going to do harm to them, not intentionally anyway. And then if you do, then you're all about apologizing and making it right. Because none of us are perfect. We do make mistakes. But when you're motivated by your heart, you make less mistakes, because you don't want to do any harm. And that was him. He said, he talked about love being an absolute necessity for the survival of man. He said, when I speak of love, I am speaking about that force which all the great religions have seen as the supreme unifying principle of life. Love is the key that unlocks the door, which leads to ultimate reality. The Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Buddhist belief about ultimate reality is beautifully summed up in the first epistle of St. John, where it says, "Let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone that loveth is born of God, and knoweth God. And he that loveth and knoweth not God, he that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love." If we love one another, God dwelleth in us, and his love is perfected in us. That's a direct quote out of this book. And all of this stuff that I'm quoting, it's all from the same little chapter, so that just gives you one little snippet of what you can grow and learn if you get this book and if you read it. And by the way, you can get it on Amazon, Amazon.com. I don't know if they'd have it at a place like Barnes and Noble's, but definitely Amazon.com. You can get it if you're interested in reading it. Martin Luther said, we can't walk alone, He believed that our destinies are really all intertwined, and he's right. Our hopes, our dreams, everything, they're all the same. The key to this is to understand that you were born great. You are meant for greatness. I know that every single one of you feel that within you. You know you're meant to do great things. We're all meant to do great things. We got here against astronomical odds. We're all meant for greatness. But until you make the decision to be great and to act on your thoughts of being great and doing great things, then your greatness is only potential. What changes greatness from potential into reality are the actions that we take, the decisions we make. Remember, all decisions are sacred. Every moment is sacred. We're valuable because we're human. We're valuable just because we were born and no other reason. That's our birthright. We came in with that. That's our birthright, because we are the champion. We are the winner. We won the race. Now, again, I made this quote before of Einstein saying, you can't solve a problem with the same thinking that created the problem. So, knowing that you are meant for greatness, knowing that you have gifts within you and abilities within you that you came into this world with, that you came into this world with a purpose. And that's all you have to do is discover what that purpose is, and it's all wrapped up in your passions, your desires of what you want to do. My desire is to speak, to do what I'm doing right now. But I didn't act on it immediately. It took me years to figure this out, years. But I'm finally living in my passion and the reason why I was born. You've got to do the same thing, and your life and your heart will soar. And abundance and blessings will come upon you greatly. And I'm not going to define abundance. I mean, there's lots of different definitions about what abundance can be in your life. But when I say abundance, I'm just talking about a full life, where you are satisfied. And you know, if I die tomorrow, I can die happy because I'm doing what I was born to do. Whether that's being an Olympic racer, whether that's becoming a lawyer, or a doctor, or a nurse, or an engineer, or a teacher, whatever it is. It's waking up and following that passion from your heart. This man, Albert Pike, a writer and a teacher in the 1800s, said, "What we have done for ourselves alone dies with us. What we have done for others and for the world remains and is immortal." And that's why this man has now become immortal. He may have died in 1968, and this is 2012. And this man is still influencing our lives and will from now on, because he was a servant. He served. And he said, let me find the quote here. I gave it to you on the sheet. Let's see if I can find it. You know, I just found another one, and I want to read it before I find the other one. He says here, we must turn more of our energies and focus, our creativity. This is on the first page of the handout that I gave you. We must turn more of our energies and focus, the second paragraph, I'm sorry. We must turn more of our energies and focus our creativity on the useful things that translate into power. This is not a program for a distant tomorrow when our children will somehow have acquired enough education to do it for themselves. We in this generation must do the work, and in doing it, stimulate our children to learn and acquire higher levels of skill and technique. He goes on to say, we are on the threshold of a significant change that demands 100-fold acceleration. That was true back then regarding racism and segregation, and it is true today regarding the condition that we find our world in now, with the environment, the economy, healthcare, education, the judicial system, the political system, everything, and whatever career you decide to go into. I am not finding the quote that I want to find, so I would just summarize it. He quoted Jesus as saying, "The greatest of you is the servant. The greatest person is the one who serves." And then he says, based on that definition, if you go by that definition that Jesus gave, he says then everybody can be great, because everybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree. You don't have to have to make your subject and your verb agree to serve. You don't have to know about Plato and Aristotle to serve. You don't have to know Einstein's theory of relativity to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, so generated by love. You can be a servant. You can be great just by being a servant. Now, remember I said Einstein said, you can't solve a problem with the same thinking that created the problem. Einstein also said that imagination is more important than knowledge. He scratched that into his desk and then burnt it so that it stood out, and he would see that every day. Imagination is more important than knowledge. And he and Henry Ford and Thomas Edison and the Wright brothers, they all lived by that credo. Imagination is more important than knowledge. One of my mentors taught me to sit down and create what he called and what I now call a book of ideas. Because when you start listening to yourself and paying attention to your passions, paying attention to what the kind of life you want to live and what you want to create and what you want to fix and what you want to change, you know, you can sit down and take your book of ideas and spend 15 minutes on a regular basis, you know, monthly basis, weekly basis, bi-monthly basis, however you want to do it, but just sit down, take 15, 20 minutes or even a half an hour just for the specific purpose of thinking creative ideas. Just come up with anything you would ever think you would ever want to do and create and be in your life, and just write it all down. And it's a mind dump. You just brainstorm with yourself and just start writing down every idea you can come up with in any aspect of your life that you would like to create and make happen someday. And you do this on a regular basis. And the critical thing here is to not censor it. I don't care how outlandish the idea, how impossible you might think it would be to create it, or how crazy it sounds. It could be outlandishly crazy, you know, and you might your second thought when you think the thought might be, well, that's stupid. Write it down anyway. Censor nothing. Write them all down. Because this is a fact. Because many people have done this for years and years and years, including Einstein, right? And history has proven that those outlandish, stupid, craziest ideas that you come up with in your book turn out to be the biggest, the best, and the most lucrative ideas. Because when you go back a week later or a month later or however long it is and you look at that, it speaks to you, you act on it, and you change many, many, many things in your life and in the world around you. That was Edison's idea. Ooh, I want to create a light bulb. And everybody said, you're insane. It can't be done. Forget about it. Everybody, all his colleagues, all the scientists, everybody told him, it's stupid. Don't even waste your time. But Edison caught that vision. And he wrote in his diary, which you can see in the Smithsonian today. It's there. You can see it and read it for yourself. He said, he didn't say, I think I will, I think I can, I might be able to. He said, I will make the oil lamp obsolete. History says that it took the man over 10,000 tries to create the light bulb. And somewhere around 500 that some reporter said, you know, mentioned to him, hey, you know, everybody thinks you're crazy for doing this. You know, how does it feel to have 500 failures under your belt? And he looked at him and he said, no, I don't have a single failure under my belt. I successfully discovered 500 ways not to make a light bulb. You know? And he says, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make I'm going to make that oil lamp obsolete. Okay, let me get this thing back on. He was determined to make that oil lamp obsolete. And he succeeded. And we are benefiting from that today. This is his legacy. Every light bulb we have is his legacy. It was the same with the Wright brothers. The Wright brothers were told, you boys are insane. His father was a preacher, and they had to hear all the time, you know, if men were meant to fly, we would have been born with wings. Just give it up already. But they had a vision, like Martin Luther King. They had a dream. They made that dream come true. And aeronautical engineering is the legacy of that. Edison, he had 1,099 patents. He has more than any other human being, even still to this day, because this man would sit down and get steel and come up with creative ideas. And he influences every aspect of our lives. He came up with the phonograph. He came up with the hearing aid. He helped create the cinema. We go to the movies. He helped create that. He created something for the way the train wheels go. I don't remember all the ifs, ands, and buts about it, but he's in every industry, that man, the creations that he came up with. Creative ideas. He'd come up with these ideas and he wouldn't doubt his ideas. And see, that's what we do. That's our habit. And believe me, it's just a habit. See, we come up with a great idea, and then we spend the next 50 thoughts of thinking of all the reasons why we can't do it and why it can't be done. And we talk ourselves out of something great to do and to be and to have. Because we don't even try. We talk ourselves out of it. But let me tell you something. There is a law at work in this universe. And it's called the law of opposites. Polar opposites, specifically. For every north, there's a south. Think of magnetism. You've got a south pole and a north pole, all right? For every up, there's a down. For every left, there's a right. For every in, there's an out. For every wrong, there's a right. For every truth, there's a lie. There's opposites. It's a law in this existence that we have. And let me tell you something. If you come up with a great idea, and you can think of 50 reasons why you cannot do it, or how it cannot happen, and on and on and on, then by law, you have to be able to also think of 50 ways how it can be done and why you should do it. Sometimes you have to get some education, and all you got to do is just start taking steps. You may not know all the steps, but you just start taking steps, and the next step will be revealed, and the next one after that, and the next one after that. It's like driving a car. We all drive, and none of us, think nothing about getting in our car at night, getting out on the highway, driving 50, 60, 70, 80 miles an hour in the dark, and all we can see is 200 feet at most in front of us, and we're going 70 miles an hour. We think nothing of it. We're not scared, because we know that as we move along, more will be revealed. I'll see when I need to take the turn. I'll see when I need to slow down, because something's in the way. I'll see in enough time to do something, to continue on my trip in the dark. And it's the same way with our ideas. You get an idea, you may not know everything when you start out, but you don't need to know. All you need to know is the first step that you need to take. You take that one, and you will see the next one. You take that one, and you will see the next one. And sometimes, it just happens quickly and easily, and boom, boom, and you're just amazed. Wow, I did this. Other times, it's a struggle, and it seems like I gotta fight for everything. But when you finally succeed, it's wow, I did this. I did this. That can be your life if you start listening to yourself and you start listening to your ideas. You see, in thinking outside the box, consider this. You've all heard the psychological question that they ask because they want to know if you're a pessimist or an optimist, and they say, okay, is the glass half full or is the glass half empty? Now, you don't need to tell me what your answer is to that question, but think about your answer for a second. Is it half full or is it half empty? Now, let me ask you this. Why did you answer that question the way you answered it? If you said half full and half empty, then you're in the paradigm. And that's what I'm talking about. Think outside the paradigm. Guess what? That glass is refillable. And not only is it refillable, but you can decide what you want to put in it. Do you want to put more of the same in it? Or is it going to be better if we just dump that out and put something completely new in it? And even more than that, guess what? That glass is replaceable. Maybe we need to just come up with a whole new economy, a whole new healthcare system, a whole new way than just saying we're going to increase or decrease taxes or whatever it is, or cutbacks or whatever it is. A whole new way. We need to get rid of that glass and get a whole new glass, a better glass, a bigger glass, and fill it up with something new. And that's the kind of thinking that I'm talking about. Getting outside that paradigm, outside of that box, into your ideas that circle around your most favorite interests. Because when you do that, you become a part of the solution. When you start looking at what's around you and you say, what's wrong here and what can I do to change it? And then you start taking steps to change it. When you answer that question, what can I do to change it? And then you act on that answer. And when you start doing that in every aspect of your life, you'll change not only your life, you'll change your family's life. Let me open this back up. You will change everything. And you can change the way our government does business. You can change the way and the condition of our economy, our healthcare system. You have the power within you to do it as long as you follow your specific passions and what you want to do and be. When you start listening to your heart more than anything else and start following the purpose for which you came into this life. Now I have just one other little example that I want to give you in talking about that. I at one time, because a lot of times it takes you a while to figure out what you want to do and what you want to be. The key is every time you get an interest, pursue it. Because it's either going to fuel you or you're going to decide, no, I don't want to do this, I don't want to be this. But thank God I tried this, because at least when you get old and gray-headed, you're not going to be saying, God, what would have happened if I tried that? What would I have done? What would I have been? You'll never know because you never tried. And that's the key. Every interest you have, it's there for a reason. And there's something in that that you need to learn. I have never regretted any decision that I ever made when I pursued something like that, because every time I learned something that I was able to use later on in life. No time is ever wasted when you are pursuing an interest. Okay? So one of my interests, one of my many, that I am having nothing to do with today, but one of those was flying. I thought I wanted to be a pilot. So I took steps toward that interest. I got a student pilot's license, and I started flying airplanes, and I started flying for the Civil Air Patrol and doing all these different things, and I flew for them because I could fly for free, you know, and long hours and stuff like that. But here's one of the most important things that I learned during that time that I apply in my own life today. And that is that every single plane, if it's going to fly, it must have what's called an attitude indicator operating and working in the cockpit, or you can't get clearance to take off. FAA will ground you. So you have to have your attitude indicator. Now an attitude indicator gives the pilot very critical information. It tells him what the relationship of the aircraft is to ground and to the horizon. So it tells him if he's flying, he or she is flying nose up in relation to ground, nose level, or nose down. It also tells him whether he's banking to the right or to the left and how much of a bank he's banking. Now, if he's banking at a 45-degree angle, he's feeling that turn. He's pulling some G's, he or she. We're going to feel that turn when it's 45 degrees, all right? But if you're just an ever so slight, just a little bit to the right or left, you're not going to know that you're not flying straight. You might know you're flying level, but you won't know that you're flying straight. And the goal is to fly straight and level when you want to get from point A to point B. And you don't want to go up and down until it's time to go up or down. Okay? So, if we wanted to get in an airplane today and fly from Philadelphia to, say, Tucson, and that probably would take us about 6 hours, I'm guessing. I don't have a calculator to figure that out, but we'll just guess it's 6 hours, okay? That we want to fly from Philadelphia to Tucson. So we want to go straight and level. We want to go in a straight line, 6 hours to get there. Okay, now, if the pilot that's piloting that aircraft is not paying attention to his attitude indicator, and if he's flying along and he gets a slight little bank to the left and doesn't realize it, and flies that whole 6 hours, just that slight little 1 or 2 degrees to the left, do you know that 6 hours later, when you start looking for the airport in Tucson, instead of finding the airport in Tucson, you're going to be finding an airport in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. Huge difference from where you wanted to be in just 6 hours. Well, see, that's us. We have an attitude. And our attitude is made up of our thoughts and our feelings and our actions. It's a composite of those three things: thoughts, feelings, and actions. We've all, I think most of us have heard by now, because of The Secret and all of that, the phrase, you become what you think about, right? Which is true. Your thoughts influence the direction that you go. And you can always change the results in your life by changing your thoughts. That's how I went from where I was 5.5 years ago to standing here today. I changed my thoughts. When you change your thoughts and then you act on that, you do something in agreement with that thought, you act on it, then it changes the results in your life. And I'm not talking a major thing here, because I didn't go quit my job. I was still an ECE tech way back then when I started making these decisions to change my life. And they've all been small changes here and there. But over time, it makes a huge difference to where you end up. 6 months from now, a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. It can make a huge, astronomical difference. The difference between Tucson and Victoria, British Columbia in your life. When you just start making little changes based on your thoughts and you act on it and your feelings. You build yourself up. You build up your esteem. You build up your self-worth. Do you know your self-worth will automatically jump every time you act on an idea and you succeed? And even when you fail, failure is the wrong term and the wrong way to look at anything. When we don't succeed at something, we don't really fail. We're just, as Edison, learning a way not to do it. We just successfully learned something else that's going to continue to take us in the right direction so that we finally achieve our dream. A lot of extremely successful people in this world started out failing, but they didn't quit because they understood this, and they understood the obstacles that they come up against have an answer in them. And that if you look at the obstacle, you find your way around it, you grow, you learn, you become more successful. And every time you overcome an obstacle, you feel stronger, you feel better, you feel brighter. You believe in yourself more. And every time you fail and you get up again and then you try again, you may fail again and get up again and then you try again and you succeed, God, do you feel great. And every time that you do that, you're building your internal self-worth and your internal self-esteem. And you will reach the point, if you're not there already, you will reach a point where no one that challenges you can keep you from your dream. He's a perfect example of that. Think of all the opposition this man came up against. He had the determination, the feelings of self-esteem and self-worth to believe in his dream to the bitter end. And his dream is still alive today. That's how solid you can become, so that no matter the opposition, you are succeeding, just like he succeeded. I mean, sometimes it looked like he was failing, but he was succeeding every step of the way. And that is each and every one of you. And so as you just keep a check on your attitude, your thoughts, you act on them to change your results or to create your results. You know, you want A's. Everybody wants A's. Okay, what do I have to do to make sure I get an A on my next test? Answer that question, act upon that, you'll get your A. And that will give you more confidence for the next test. Or you might get a B. You'll certainly get better than you're getting if you focus that way. What do I need to do right now so that when I take my test next Thursday, I'm going to get as close to an A as humanly possible? You know, you answer those questions and you act upon it, remembering that your attitude is your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. And those three create a result. And you can get better and better and better at creating the results that you want in your life. So that if somebody comes up to you and says, son, you cannot do that, forget it. You'll have the confidence to say, no, I'm not going to forget it. That's what he did. No, I believe in my dream. I know who I am. And you're going to stand firm, and you're going to stand tall, and you're going to say, okay, you keep your attitude. got mine. I'm going to go over here. And you create it. You make it happen because you have that passion, that burning desire within, because you're listening to your heart and you're acknowledging the gifts, the talents that you came into this world with. And you're saying to yourself, this is my major. I'm going to think outside the box, and I'm going to do like Martin Luther King did. And I'm going to make a difference in this world. My goal is to fix this. And you go out there and you fix it. And those of you, if there's anybody in here that wants to be a politician, you go into Congress like that, you run for office like that, believe me, people see your passion. They know when you're telling them the truth. Just like they saw this man's passion. You can readily see it if you watch any of the films of him speaking. And you know he's coming from here. When people see you coming from here, they're going to follow you. If you go to Congress, you're wanting to run for election, and you want to win, they're going to see you as different from everybody else. And they're going to follow you and they're going to vote for you. Because they see your passion. They see you mean what you say. And that you're going to get in there and do whatever you can. And if you're thinking outside the box, and you're thinking of new and real solutions, and not just more cutbacks and tax increases and tax decreases and bailouts and band-aids and everything else, you start coming up with new kinds of solutions. You're going to fix the problems that we're facing today, and you're going to choose community over chaos. And that's what we want to do. But it starts right here with each one of us individually. For me, it's standing up here, talking to you, inspiring you. For you, it's something else. Maybe one of you or two of you is going to be exactly like me, and you're going to want to speak and talk and inspire and uplift and encourage and empower people. And if that's the case, come and see me. We'll talk. I'll tell you my path. I'll help you along. You know? But it may be something else for you. You may be going into the health system. You can be the answer to the healthcare problems, or some disease or something of that nature, or you may be a lawyer. Whatever your choice is, just follow your heart, follow your passions, listen to your thoughts, and just always answer that question. What do I need to do now? What can I do to fix this problem? Or what can I do to achieve this result? I want to be one of the ones to stand up and choose community over global chaos. Because remember, what we do in America affects everybody. If we fix something here, it's going to get fixed globally because everybody looks at us. With the exception of a few small countries, everybody looks at us. And they want to do what we are doing. Okay? So when we fix something, it's going to ripple in a huge way globally. And you can be a part of that. When we start walking out of here and into the world out there with that one desire, I'm not going to accept the chaos that I see. I'm going to make a difference. Now, I'm going to give you 3 examples. Back during the Great Depression, everybody from coast to coast, East Coast to West Coast, they're all screaming, oh, the Depression, I have no job, there's no money, or I have a job but I'm not making any money, you know, all the struggles that came along with the Great Depression and lack of food and all lack, everywhere lack. Well, during the Great Depression now, there were groups of people that didn't let the Great Depression stop them. And they got jobs, they created companies. You can look in the history books and you see all along the way, all the people that did things succeeded during the Depression when the circumstances said they couldn't do it, that it was impossible. 3 of the largest of those happened in the middle of the country, in the East Coast, and on the West Coast. In the East Coast, they said, and this was a little bit vain, but they said, you know what? I want to create the tallest building in the world. Let's build a building here in New York City. We'll call it the Empire State Building. In spite of the fact that there was a depression and everybody said there's no money, you can't do it, guess what? They did it and they built the entire Empire State Building. On the West Coast, the opposite end, they were saying, I'm getting tired of ferries. I'm getting tired of having to get to San Francisco by water. It takes too long. It takes too much effort. I'm sick of this. Let's build a bridge. And everybody's going, but it's the Depression. There's no money. How can you do that? No, you can't do it. Well, they followed that law. If I can think of an idea, and I can hear all these ideas and think of all these ideas why it can't be done, then I can certainly figure out how it can be done. Yes, during the Great Depression. And they built the Golden Gate Bridge into San Francisco. Hoover Dam, same thing. We need to control the water here. We need to do this and use it for energy, create these turbines, do this, that, and the other. Let's create a dam. But it's the Great Depression. How are you going to get people out here to cut through the mountain and do this and do that and the other? You know, Great Depression, they didn't let the circumstances stop them. They did it. And that's what I'm talking about here. The chaos may be around you in gangbusters, but you don't have to listen to the chaos. All you have to do is listen to your internal compass. You listen to that internal compass, then you're going to be the ship that has the rudder. You're going to be the ship that is successful. Now I want to read a poem to you by Ella Wilcox Wheeler, one of my favorite poems. She says, "One ship sails east and another west by the selfsame winds that blow. 'Tis the set of the sails, not the gales, that tells the way we go. Like the winds of the sea are the waves of time as we journey along through life. 'Tis the set of the soul that determines the goal, and not the calm or the strife. It doesn't matter. That's why two people can stand side by side, grow up in the same circumstances, grow up in the same city, the same town, have the same parent, and one is a huge success, and the other one is a huge failure, and in prison, or addicted to drugs, or whatever it is. It was the choices that were made of the individual. It's not the winds, it's not the winds of circumstance, it's not the waves of time, it's not your parents, it's not the grade that you didn't like, it's not any of that stuff. It's the set of your soul. It's the set of that internal compass. And when you're paying attention to that internal compass, then it means you've got your hand on the wheel, you've got your hand on the rudder, and you're using the wind no matter what direction it's blowing, you're using it to guide your ship in the direction that you want to go. And that's why you can be successful while everybody around you is floundering, saying Great Depression, or economy, or this and that and the other, and you're sitting there saying, I'm choosing my life, I'm choosing my way, I am determined. Ella Wilcox Wheeler also said that there is no chance, no destiny, no fate that can hinder or control the firm resolve of a determined soul. That can be you. That is me. That's who I am creating myself to be. It's choice, not chance, that determines your destiny. That was Jean Knighted that said that. It's choice that determines your destiny. It's the choices you make in those sacred moments every day of your life. Am I going to let the economy discourage me? Am I going to let this obstacle over here discourage me? Am I going to let what people say discourage me? Or am I going to listen to that internal compass, listen to that firm resolve of this determined soul, and be the success that I want to be, and create the light bulb, or come up with the theory of relativity like Einstein did? They said he was crazy. But what are you learning in physics now? Theory of relativity, quantum physics. That's the kind of resolve I'm talking about, the firm resolve of an Edison and the Wright brothers, in spite of everybody saying you can't do it. Everybody told Ford that he couldn't create an engine block. And he said, they're saying, that's impossible, it's scientifically impossible to create an engine block. And he goes, well, I know that, but I want you guys to do it. This is what he said to his engineers, I want you guys to do it. Get in there and do it. 6 months later, he said, where's my engine block? And they're going, well, we haven't done anything. That's an insane idea, you can't do it. And he's going, well, I know, but I want you to create it. Get about creating it. That's what I'm paying you for, do it. He didn't listen. He pushed him, and guess what? They created an engine block. And then we came up with the first L8 engine and L6 engine and all that. Or the V8, not the L8, the V8. But that was the first V8 engine on a block. You know? That's the kind of tenacity I'm talking about. That's the kind, because he wanted that in the worst way. He was following his passions, and he didn't let even his engineers shut him down. He stayed with that vision. And then he created automation and the assembly line and changed our lives again. And then we had factories. And that was all because of Henry Ford. Those are the kinds of out-of-the-box thinking that I'm talking about, where your brain or people around you might want to say, hey, that's impossible. But you don't listen. Like Ford, you have that tenacity and you say, well, we're going to do it anyway. We're not going to listen to that. They make a huge difference where you're going to be 10, 15, 20 years from now, or when you reach my age. God bless every single one of you. I know you can fulfill all the desires of your heart, and I know without a shadow of a doubt that there's not a problem in existence today that you cannot solve and fix just by a little bit of thinking outside of the box and outside of the paradigm. Thank you so much.